Hello, this is Spellbinder's Report. I am doing a report on this article from May 19th of 2000 from Carnicom.com's website. He's a man who's been on the issue of chemtrails since the late 90s. Is when I first came across chemtrail information, and it was his website that introduced me to this. And now a lot of websites out there doing chemtrails reporting. But this is neat because this came from a mechanic who works on the aircrafts, and he discovered something in the aircrafts that no one knows about except the people that work on the laboratory, on the bathrooms on the aircraft. And this is how it goes. It says, for reasons you will understand as you read this, I cannot divulge my identity. I am an aircraft mechanic for a major airline. I work at one of our maintenance bases located at a large airport. I have discovered some information that I think you will find important. First, I should tell you something about the pecking order among mechanics. It is important to my story and to the cause to which you have dedicated yourself. Mechanics want to work on three things: avionics, engines, or the flight controls. The mechanics that work on these systems are considered at the top of the pecking order. Next come the mechanics that work on hydraulics, air conditioning systems. Then comes the ones who work on the galley and the other non-essential systems. But at the very bottom of the list are the mechanics that work on the waste disposal systems. No mechanic wants to work on the pumps, tanks, and pipes that are used to store the waste from the laboratories. But at every airport where I have worked, there are always 2 or 3 mechanics that volunteer to work on the laboratory systems. The other mechanics are happy to let them do it. Because of this, you will have only 2 or 3 mechanics that work on these systems at any one airport. No one pays much attention to these guys, and no mechanic socializes with another mechanic who only works on the waste system. In fact, I have never thought much about this situation until last month. Like most airlines, we have receptacle agreements with the other airlines that fly into this airport. If they have a problem with the plane, one of our mechanics will take care of it. Likewise, if one of our planes has a problem at an airport where the other airlines has a maintenance base, they will fix our plane. One day last month, I was called out from our base to work on a plane for another airline. When I got the call, the dispatcher did not know what the problem was. When I got to the plane, I found that the problem was in the waste disposal system. There was nothing for me to do but to crawl in and fix the problem. When I got into the bay, I realized that something wasn't right here. There were more tanks, pumps, and pipes than should have been there. At first I assumed that the system had been changed. It had been 10 years since I had worked on one. As I tried to fix the problem, I quickly realized the extra piping and tanks were not connected to the waste disposal system. I had just discovered this when another mechanic from my company showed up. It was one of the mechanics who usually works on these systems. I happily turned the job over to him. As I was leaving, I asked him about the extra equipment. He told me, worry about my end of the airplane and let him worry about his. The next day, I was on the company computer to look up a wiring schematic. While I was there, I decided to look up the extra equipment I found. To my amazement, the manuals did not show any of the extra equipment that I had been seeing with my own eyes the day before. I even tied into the manufacturer files and still found nothing. Now I was really determined to find out what that equipment did. The next week I had 3 of our planes in our main hangar for periodic inspections. There are mechanics crawling all over a plane during these inspections. I had just finished my shift and I decided to have a look at the waste system on one of our planes. With all the mechanics around, I figured that no one would notice an extra one on the plane. Sure enough, the plane I chose had the extra equipment. I began to trace the system of pipes and pumps and tanks. I found what appeared to be the control unit for the system. It was a standard-looking avionics control box, but it had no markings of any kind. I could trace the control wires from the box to the pumps and the valves, but there were no control circuits coming into the unit. The only wires coming into the unit was a power connection to the aircraft's main power bus. The system had one large and two smaller tanks. It was hard to tell in the cramped compartment, but it looked like the large tank could hold 50 gallons. The tanks were connected to a fill and drain valve that passed through the fuselage just behind the drain valve for the waste system. When I had a chance to look for this connection under the plane, I found it cunningly hidden behind a panel under the panel used to access the waste drain. I began to trace the pipe from the pumps. These pipes led to the network of small pipes that ended in the tailing edge of the wings and horizontal stabilizers. If you look closely at the wings of a large airplane, you will see a set of wires about the size of your finger extending from the trailing edge of the wing surface. These are static discharge wicks. They are used to dissipate the static electric charge that builds up on the plane in flight. I discovered that the pipes from this mystery system led to every one out of 3 of these static discharge wicks. These wicks had been hollowed out to allow whatever flows through these pipes to be discharged through these fake wicks. It was while I was on the wing that one of the managers spotted me. He ordered me out of the hangar, telling me that my shift was over and I had not been authorized any overtime. The next couple of days were very busy and I had no time to continue my investigation. Late one afternoon, 2 days after my discovery, I was called to replace an engine temperature sensor on the plane due to take off in 2 hours. I finished the job and turned in the paperwork. About 30 minutes later, I was paged to see the general manager. When I went to his office, I found that our union rep and 2 others, who I did not know, were waiting on me. He told me that a serious problem had been discovered. He said that I was being written up and suspended for turning in false paperwork. He handed me a disciplinary form stating that I had turned in false paperwork on an engine temperature sensor I had installed a few hours before. I was floored and began to protest. I told them that this was ridiculous and I had done this work. The union rep spoke up then and recommended that we take a look at the plane and see if we could straighten this all out. It was at this time that I was asked who the other 2 men were. The general manager told me that they were airline safety inspectors, but would not give me their name. I proceeded to the plane, which should have been in the air but was parked in our maintenance hangar or maintenance ramp. We opened the engine cowling and the union rep pulled the sensor. He checked the serial number and told everyone that it was the old instrument. We then went to the parts bay and went back into the racks. The union rep checked my report and pulled from the racks a sealed box. He opened the box, pulled out the engine temperature sensor, which the serial number of the one I have installed. I was told that I was suspended for a week without pay and to leave immediately. I sat at home the first day of my suspension wondering what the hell had happened to me. That evening I received a phone call. The voice told me, "Now you know what happens to mechanics who poke around in things they shouldn't. The next time you start working on a system that are no concern of yours, you will lose your job." As it is, I'm feeling generous. I believe that you'll be able to go back to work soon. Click. Again, I had to pick myself up off the floor. I made the connection that what had happened was directly connected to my tracing of the mysterious piping. The next morning, the general manager called me. He said that due to my past excellent employment record, that the suspension had been reduced to 1 day and that I should report back to work immediately. The only thing I could think of was what they had trying to hide, and who are they? That day at work went as if nothing has happened. None of the other mechanics mentioned the suspension, and my union rep told me not to talk about it. That night I logged into the internet and tried to find some answers. I don't remember how I got there, but I came across your site. That's when it all came together. But the next morning at work I found a note inside my locked locker. It said, "Curiosity killed the cat. Don't be looking at internet sites that are no concern of yours." Well, that's it. They are watching me. Well, you already know what they are doing. I don't know what they are spraying, but I can tell you how they are doing it. I figure they are using the honey trucks. These are the trucks that empty the waste from the laboratory waste tanks. The airport usually contracts out this job and nobody goes near these trucks. Who wants to stand next to a truck full of shit? Well, while these guys are emptying the waste tanks, they are filling the tanks of the spray system. They know the plane's flight path, so they probably programmed the control unit to start spraying some amount of time after the plane reaches a certain altitude. The spray nozzles in the fake static wicks are so small that no one in the plane would see a thing. God help us all, a concerned citizen. Well, there you have it. This is his report on it. I'm thinking it doesn't need to be programmed. The thing probably has a built-in altimeter setting that automatically goes on when the plane reaches a certain altitude, so it doesn't really need to have any settings done to it. The way he said it was a box that just had a power cord and the leads leading out to the pumps, valves, and things of that nature. So this is something I think everybody should know. This came in at May 19, 2000, and they've been spraying since, I know, either the late 80s or early 90s. I started noticing it myself. Before that, I've never seen a contrail last more than a few minutes at the most, and never cover the entire sky over a period of a day. Well, this is my report. This is Spellbinder saying be good at it. And now you know the whole story of the chemtrails and how they get away with it. It's compartmentalized. Most things are that they get away with. The right hand doesn't know what the left hand's doing. Good day.